What was expected, and what was done at COP27?
Climate conference in Egypt was COP27, 27th Global Climate Conference, and the main expected outcomes were related to the Paris Climate Agreement in 2015 and some breakthrough deals in Glasgow in 2021. So the expected task was to follow up on strengthening the mitigation aims agreed in Paris and in Glasgow, that is to make efforts to keep temperature rise in between 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius.
Pros and cons of conferences.
I think it is important to have climate conferences that are dealing with climate change. It certainly is important to keep the idea in people's minds that we have a problem that we're still trying to solve and we haven't done so yet. That's probably the biggest pro, that the problem is happening and the world is trying to find solutions. The cons would probably be that we really didn't address the problem at its core yet. And as it was mentioned, it's 27th climate conference, so there is a lot of cons, definitely. So the truth is probably somewhere in between. It could be said that we would be probably worse without these conferences. There would be probably much less effort to deal with carbon emissions and climate change. But on the other hand, the solutions up to date are too little and too late.
Are these conferences with the participation of 45,000 people an effective way to solve the global climate crisis?
Good question. We don't have anything better, I guess. If it's effective, probably not. But again, we haven't come up with anything better. That is to deal it without these conferences, to solve it or try to solve it without these conferences. It's a global problem. We need global solutions. So not one government or not one country can deal with this problem, or even one region. So it's a question how it could be addressed without similar kinds of events. So yeah, it's probably not effective, but we don't have anything better to this date.
How are the agreements from previous conferences being fulfilled, and what is the expected development after this one?
Up to now, we have, I would say the breakthrough conference would be in Paris 2015. So there, for the first time, the world agreed to limit temperature rise to between 1.5 to 2 degrees. So that was really the first time basically all countries agreed on this crucial temperature limit, and it's clearly related to carbon emissions. But since then, let's say, pledges to limit emissions were not fulfilled, right? So the emissions and concentrations are still rising. Since the Paris Agreement, the global carbon emissions is 5% higher, so we are still not on the right track. So that's the bad development.
How to make pledges from COP conferences work?
So really, we are not keeping up with our pledges, and the expectation or the idea is to really start implement what we have agreed. Not only in Paris, but even in the conferences after. But we still don't have instruments or effective instruments how to make the pledges work and really start reducing emissions globally fast enough to keep the temperature rise. The idea after COP27, but that was also the idea of the conferences before that, is that we really start to address the problem. The thing is that we still haven't named the core, let's say, the core problem at this with this climate change. That is, we still haven't named the specifically fossil fuels that needs to decline. That is, even in this COP27, we didn't mention all fossil fuels that needs to be reduced literally to zero.
The 27th is a big number in temperature still rising, and emissions rising. What's wrong?
It's 27th conference. For the 27th time, we said we will try to address this issue. And yeah, the data are showing rising consumption of fossil fuels, of all fossil fuels, that is coal, oil, and natural gas. What's wrong? The thing is that growing economy is still dependent on fossil fuels. Around 80% of energy is still used from fossil fuels. The rest is low carbon or zero carbon energy. The price of renewables is declining quite fast, so we are increasing also renewable energy, but we are still not reducing fossil fuel energy. There is no effective financial legislative instrument that would really start to reduce the global use of fossil fuels. So even when we have these conferences and all these pledges and cooperation and various instruments, including emission trading, it's not really leading to the aim that was defined and that is declared by countries and governments, that is reducing global consumption. Yeah, so the thing is that there is no really law or mechanism or legislation that would definitely force us to reduce fossil fuel use.
Are politics only subject to solving global climate change?
Well, I would say all of us are responsible. Some are more responsible, some are less. Some people can decide about more important things than the others. There's the statistics that rich people consume disproportionately more energy resources. Also, another thing, not only of this COP27, but also of these previous climate conferences, there is a huge lobby related to these treaties, to these agreements. In Egypt, there was a record number of fossil fuels lobby companies. Some people even call it sort of greenwashing. So yeah, the problem is that all these good-intentioned meetings and global climate deals is really infiltrated with various interest groups, with short-term interests, maximizing profits from extracting energy resources, and they try to, the final text is always agreement of everybody, and they really go into it and make it as weak as possible and as favorable for them as possible as well. So in the end, we have formally good text saying we need reduced consumption, but in the end, nothing is really forcing it to make it so.
What is the scientific prediction of the future development of climate, nature, and human beings?
So this was also emphasized in final Egypt COP27 text, draft of the final agreement, that they agree with the science of climate change. They agree on the need to reduce emissions in order to keep temperature rise within Paris Agreement agreed limits. And they also said that they recognize the crisis that is already happening and that is impacting disproportionately more developing countries. So there is really this recognition of the science, which says that climate change is already disrupting, ecosystems, ecosystem services, way of lives of people in many countries, especially in the poorer countries. And these impacts are going to get progressively worse with time. There is this recognition that impacts of warming at 1.5 degrees will be much less severe, even though still very severe, compared to 2 degrees. So that's all understood by the participants. And also there is this risk when we cross 1.5 or even 2 degrees, because 1.5, there is no way now not to cross it, at least for some period of time. So when we cross 1.5 or 2 degrees, there is this extreme risk of unexpected outcomes and even much worse impacts from climate crisis. And really, we have to do everything to avoid this scenario.